This week in the enterprise security news, a hack brought unwanted attention to SolarWinds. Datadog and Snyk unveil GitHub integration to automate software development workflows. Thoma Bravo invests in machine identity management security startup Venafi. FireEye closes $400 million in a Blackstone Investment. And DigiCert enables manufacturers to embed certificates on chips prior to manufacturing. Then Martin Crew from Gigamon joins us to discuss visibility is critical in uncertain times. We wrap up the show with a pre-recorded interview with Emily Wynn and Mandy McKenzie from Mimecast discussing Mimecast awareness training philosophy. Stay tuned for all that and more on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. This is Security Weekly, for security professionals by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. Detecting and responding to threats in the cloud is harder than doing it on-prem. Even when you do have the visibility you need, legacy security workflows weren't designed for the speed and complexity of cloud environments. Cloud-native security solutions from ExtraHop are purpose-built to spot threats across the hybrid attack surface, provide detailed investigation steps, and help you automate response. Request your 30-day free trial at securityweekly.com/ExtraHop. CyberArray for Teams was built to help organizations stay ahead of today's evolving threat landscape and to meet today's most difficult security challenges. Fortune 500 companies like Amgen, Booz Allen Hamilton, Plexus, CVP, Fannie Mae, and Vizio, small businesses worldwide, and several branches of the U.S. military use CyberArray for Teams to close the skill gaps that put their organizations at risk and to equip their workforce with the skills to defeat their security adversaries. CyberArray for Teams. Problem solved. Visit cyberarray.it/solved to solve your training problems. Can we continue to function without facts? Cybercriminals exploit the absence of facts, harming organizations through the easiest point of entry, email. No company should claim they can stop all phishing attacks. It's about having all the facts in seconds and reducing the time it takes to respond. It's minutes versus hours and the difference between a security incident and a breach. Great Horn. See through the dark. To learn more, go to securityweekly.com/greathorn. Face it, your data is everywhere. No matter where your data lives or what tools you use, Imperva Data Security unifies compliance, security, and privacy needs for any data store while saving you time and money. Imperva finds threats before they become a compliance or security incident, and built-in automation empowers you to remediate quickly. Give your business confidence about what is happening with your data, where it's stored, and who's accessing it. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Imperva. Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly, episode number 211 for December 16th, 2020. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, joined remotely by Mr. Matt Alderman. Matt, welcome.
It's the last show of the year.
Last ESW of the year. We still have one more Paul Security Weekly tomorrow night, though a lot of weather tomorrow could be interesting. It'll be clear by tomorrow night. Mr. Adrian Sanabria is here with us. Adrian, welcome.
Hey, I'm not shedding any tears for 2020.
Right. Looking forward to 2021. If you have a specific guest or topic that you'd like us to cover on one of the shows, you can submit your suggestions for guest by visiting securityweekly.com/guest. Complete that form, and we review those suggestions on a regular basis. And now, there was actually some security news, which I was glad for. Because I like covering news. I don't like the whole reason we have the segment is so we can cover news. So let's dig into it. Let's do funding first. Funding and acquisitions.
Yeah. Some interesting funding announcements. We're going to talk about the SolarWinds component, which impacted FireEye. But what was interesting, FireEye just raised $400 million even after that breach was announced. And this is an interesting raise because FireEye is a public company. And they raised $400 million. And there's some big names behind this. Blackstone, it's Clear Sky, Jay Leak and team, Art Coviello's joining the board. I mean, this is a pretty big announcement for a already public company to raise a round like this. So I thought it was a very interesting announcement. And the timing was interesting as well because, a week ago we were talking about the breach. Now we're talking about funding to a public company.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, these things can take, weeks, months, years to get together. So likely they already had too much momentum behind it to not do it. So
Right.
That's my guess.
Agreed.
I mean, would they not do it because of the breach, or
could have? I mean, so remember earlier this year we were covering was a Forescout and the acquisition, and then they had a market drop and they had to renegotiate the terms of the deal to eventually get the deal done. So sometimes a breach like that could impact the funding round or impact the valuation on the funding round. So there are a few things that could happen because of that. But to Adrian's point, this was probably far enough down the path. It was probably pretty much already done. They just hadn't announced it. And so this thing wasn't going to stop.
go ahead, Adrian. Sorry, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if there's anything we've learned, it's that breaches in public companies, they shake them off. If anything, they have a temporary impact, and their stock prices bounce back to normal. I keep a list of companies that have actually been destroyed by breaches, and I think the largest one on that list had maybe 300 employees. So really, breaches only spell death for small companies from what we've seen.
Yeah, true. We know the stock declined like 13% last week. I haven't checked it this week to see where it is, but I doubt it will take very long for the stock to recover, especially with another cash infusion like this. I think they're in good shape. There's a couple other interesting ones in the news. Thoma Bravo invests in Venafi. It's interesting how they are positioning Venafi, Paul. I mean, we've spoken with Venafi in the past. I mean, they're a certificate company, but they call it Machine Identity Management Security.
Yeah, I mean, you could call it that.
Yeah,
it sounds better than certificate management. It sounds sexier.
Definitely sexier.
I like no-name security. That's a great name for a company. I love it. It sparks conversation.
I was wondering if we're supposed to pronounce it Noname,
right? Or I was like, are they in stealth and they don't want to say the name of the company, so it's no-name security to start?
Right. Well, it was stealth. I mean, they just came out of stealth with $25 million in funding.
Right.
They're U.S. and Israeli based. There's obviously some of the 8200 unit involved in this acquisition, so I highly doubt it's pronounced Noname. It is no name. Well, why come up with a cute and clever name? Just call it No Name Security.
I love it. I love it. It embodies the hacker spirit.
The name alone is going to be that's classic marketing hacking because the name alone is going to generate conversation, and you're going to remember it because it's such a memorable name. And just thank God it's not something like Dark Fire or like some compound
Cyber
word
trace.
made up of something. Yeah.
It can't have red in it because I'll screw it up because I've already done that.
Yeah.
It can't have risk in it because I'll be confused.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it shouldn't be like Microsoft, and it shouldn't be changing its name every 3 months.
Yeah,
that is true. Cyber, whatever.
But apparently they secure managed and unmanaged APIs.
Yes. I mean, this is an interesting play, though. I mean, we've seen this, and we're going to cover some stories on this also in the news today around application security, APIs, proliferation of APIs. Crunch 42 has some product announcements in here around API security. So this is a hot and upcoming market where we see the need to secure APIs. So here's another company in the space.
Outpost 24. I've heard of these guys before.
Yeah, they're number 4 in the vuln management space behind Qualys, Tenable, and Rapid7. Primarily,
are they number 4? Yeah, they're in Europe because they've gained some huge traction in Europe. Yeah, now it's all coming back to me. Yeah, we covered these when we worked at Tenable, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. They're more known out of Europe, and that's where most of their presence has been. I know they've tried to tap into the U.S. market in the past. I don't know how successful they've been. I mean, it's tough when you've got 3 large public companies sitting in the vuln management space. It gets a little tough to come into the U.S. and make a dent there.
And tough to say who the category king is there because all 3 of those big public companies in vulnerability management do a lot more than vulnerability management. Tenable maybe being the exception. They seem to be still very much focused on vulnerability management.
The most pure play.
Yeah, the most pure play. Yeah. which is interesting, could open up opportunities for, well, now there's lots of smaller vendors, but Outpost 24 being as large as they are could make a play if they decide to come into the U.S. and do some marketing and awareness.
I didn't realize they had acquired Pony Express. That's a blast from the past.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
Old sponsor.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did some other stuff in the cloud side as well. So they've tried to play a little broader into some of the newer technologies as well and expand into those areas. But I forgot about the Pony Express acquisition. And then this last one, VMRay. Paul, you did some work with the VMRay guys in the past. They closed a $25 million Series B. It's funny how they describe them in this article. I mean, they're a malware sandbox play pretty much, right?
Yes, they are. Analysis platform, I largely from malware. Now you're testing my memory. Yeah, VM analyzer detector. Yeah, malware analysis.
Yeah, malware analysis and some sandboxing.
It's coming back to me. Yeah, because they use really advanced hypervisor technologies, so the malware doesn't realize it's actually running inside of a sandbox, and they do that really, really well. And I want to say the folks that work on the team did an open source sandbox, which is where they got their founded in 2013. Founders complete PhD program, pioneering work in sandboxing. That's why I like them, because they actually did the work in the research and then created a company. So, and is this a Gula investment, or he does some other VM company?
No, he did Nano VM.
Nano VM. I knew there was a VM in one of the companies he invested. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a pretty good approach. We've seen Invincia actually pivoted from a Bromium competitor to like a next-gen AV competitor, but they also acquired an open source sandboxing, similar sandboxing application called Sandboxy.
Yes.
That became part of Invincia, and then Invincia got acquired by Sophos. So all that IP is over at Sophos now.
And the wheels keep spinning.
Yep. Big fish eat smaller fish, and on it goes.
Oh, I have not followed the SolarWinds breach as much as I should have. I know I flagged a bunch of articles, and I'm seeing it unfold, but I'm not sure of all the details yet.
I bet you're going to cover it in depth tomorrow night with the guys.
But yeah, that's when I plan to.
Yeah, but it looks like and we covered this partially last week, right? Is that the FireEye breach was related to, I think we did, SolarWinds. There was a compromise of SolarWinds, and it didn't just impact FireEye. It supposedly hit DHS and a few other federal agencies as well. So this is getting a little interesting. SolarWinds is all over in the news now, as it looks like the source for the FireEye breach and potentially some other agencies. Yeah.
Yeah, supply chain attacks are the scariest attacks, because really, as a bad guy, if you're thinking about how you can get access to as many things as possible, hit those libraries. We've seen attacks against stuff like NPM, different libraries that tons of software depends on, and yeah, there was a DLL within that SolarWinds product that was backdoored and making outbound HTTP requests, and scary stuff, because it's and the thing is, most companies, if you've got EDR, you've got the tools to detect this, but you've got to be really good. You got to have things really buttoned down to notice that, hey, this one DLL within this one package from this one vendor shouldn't be talking to any other servers but these.
Yeah. And that was Sandworm. It was in one of those stories. Was it it was like Ukrainian software used in the Ukraine to do accounting, right? And
that was not Petya.
It was not Petya. Okay. That was the other one on my tip of my brain. And they got inside basically the software delivery mechanism, the update mechanism in that software to target for NotPetya.
So here's the security industry screaming, patch, patch, patch. And, now what do you do when the patch comes with a backdoor?
Yep.
Or malware?
Yep. I'm not sure that's how it unfolded in SolarWinds. However, if I put my evil hat on, that's how I might attack the SolarWinds customers, is to put a backdoor, in there. Microsoft, I will give them credit, has done an amazing job of protecting their infrastructure so that doesn't happen, right? Because obviously that would be a huge attack vector. But smart attackers are now going after, let's go after SolarWinds. Maybe they haven't put as much engineering effort into their security around their updates, and they have a lot of the same large enterprise customers that we might want to have access to.
Yeah, there's so many targets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so much software out there, and there's so many companies that, just aren't very mature, but they ship software to hundreds of thousands or millions of systems on a regular basis. And even the AP article, Associated Press article on this, the title is "Hack Brings Unwanted Attention to Obscure but Vital IT Firm." So yeah, in the mainstream, most people haven't even heard of SolarWinds.
Right, SolarWinds is obscure to people outside of our field.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us have used it.
Funny.
Most of us are probably on the panel and listening have worked in an organization that has had some SolarWinds product, right, in your career. If you've worked in this field for any amount of time, many of us probably have hands-on experience with SolarWinds. Certainly their free tools back in the day, I used a lot of they had some free tools that were one of the great sources of like discovery tools and things like that. They had some good free tools.
Definitely.
What else do we have in the news? NetScout announced the extension of its smart perimeter protection to AWS. Yet more security companies bolting on top of AWS.
Yeah, and the question is, I get this from if you're a NetScout customer in your hybrid environment and you need to do this because now you got stuff running in AWS and on-prem and you want to put your DDoS protection in place and get all this stuff set. I get it. But you're going to see companies do this, but then you've got AWS just has a ton of capabilities themselves too.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see something like this. It looks like you've got to basically run something in EC2 that functions as a load balancer and as essentially a choke point for this traffic that it's going to inspect. So a very traditional type of architecture in AWS. I'm curious to know how many companies are actually doing this or doing this kind of bolt on. It doesn't look like it really takes advantage of a lot of AWS capabilities, because I think full packet capture is a possibility with AWS now. They keep opening up that control plane for EC2 more and more. I knew at one point you could get NetFlow, and then I think they moved to actual packet capture.
Packet mirroring. It's packet mirroring, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then there's things where you can actually interact with hosts you're running in EC2 without putting an agent on the hosts. So there's some hooks into what's going on those systems from the outside. So I'd be curious if they're taking advantage of any of that, or if it's just an appliance you dump in EC2.
Well, that's how everybody dips their toe into the cloud water, right? They take their physical appliance, they convert it into a virtual appliance, and you throw it on an EC2 instance. That's, hey, I got cloud capabilities, which is look like what they did. The really advanced cloud security players are definitely leveraging, I think, a lot more of the AWS capabilities across the board. I mean, when you look at like the packet mirroring stuff and what ExtraHop's done, for example, to be able to pull those packets. They're pulling those packets and putting them in their own SaaS platform to analyze them. They're not forcing you to spin up a bunch of EC2 instances to do that analysis.
Yeah, I wonder if customers are actually asking for stuff like this, or if it's more like somebody in the board's like, why are we not in the cloud? We need to get into cloud.
The latter.
That's my board member voice.
You've got a few articles here, Paul, around the AppSec market, right? So it looks like
Veracode published a report that I thought was really interesting. The common security flaws in apps. I think this is not the first time they've produced such report. They've got good visibility into many customers. Information leakage, CRLF injection, and cryptographic issues top the spectrum. And there's a whole list with the percentages and things like that. So I think injection flaws in particular, if you were to lump those into one bucket, would be high up there, as well as the cross-site family, right? Cross-site scripting and the like, pretty common.
And then Contrast had kind of their own spin on a report, more around flaws in the results of kind of the issues associated with AppSec and having problems with your application environment. Here they talk about APIs. We talked about a new startup in the API space. 42Crunch has some new capabilities on the API front, and Contrast is talking about obviously we have a lot more APIs communicate with applications, and that's one of the potential attack vectors. So there's a lot of stories focused around application security, and we cover this on ASW, but we also see a lot of news that comes over to this show. There is a lot of activity happening in the application security space these days.
This one caught my eye from 42Crunch because I'm an IntelliJ user, primarily PyCharm, but I think they make some of the best and most popular, of course, IDEs on the market today. IntelliJ is their Java platform. JetBrains is the company. JetBrains also makes PyCharm and PHP Storm. I tell you, I've tested the IDEs. They're my favorite. And you may be VS Code or some other IDE, and that's totally fine too. But what I like with this integration is I get some auditing of the APIs that I may have my own code or I'm interfacing with through this integration with 42Crunch, which I think is cool.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, putting these plugins in the developer's hands to be able to gain access to this as they're coding, I think is great. I mean, we've seen this with other folks. Synopsys did some stuff with IDE plugins. I'm pretty sure Veracode has some IDE plugins for the stuff that they're doing. I mean, you put it in front of developers, it makes it a lot easier to have it in their native tool. This is the lesson we're learning in AppSec. Bring the tools to the developer tools.
Right. They
will get used.
Yes, absolutely.
And did we mention they were free? Because they're free.
So is 42Crunch's integration free?
It says the audit plugins are free.
Audit plugins are free. That's awesome. I will download and use it. Because not every, when you have a JetBrains product, they have a plugin library. Not all the plugins are free, right? Synopsys is paid for, but Synopsys gives you like an awesome functionality. Like we covered in a webcast, and I was super impressed at the level of functionality that they gave you inside of your IDE. It really made it streamlined for the developers. So some are paid for plugins in JetBrains, and some are free. Some have both, right? You get a free version and or a commercial version that has more enterprise features or more features in general.
Yeah, and this is one of those nice products that has a nice freemium version for individuals for small projects. And I think the hook there is if you want to build it into DevOps workflows, you want to do some automation or get some visibility on what kind of stuff the product is getting fixed. That's where you purchase a subscription to their platform.
Sweet.
Yep. Let's see. Datadog and Snyk unveil GitHub integration to automate software development workflow. Interesting combination. You've got Datadog as kind of the monitoring company. You got Snyk as the vulnerability company, understanding those transient vulnerabilities in your dependencies, coming together to provide some capabilities. Again, automating stuff through these GitHub actions. There was a story we covered a few weeks ago about some of the potential vulnerabilities in some of these GitHub actions. So, word of caution: it's great to have some of these actions available, but there's also been some discussions about how secure some of those actions are and how they work. So folks might want to do a little more research before they implement all these fun little new GitHub action capabilities.
Yeah, it's both exciting and concerning for me, because it's exciting that we can automate a lot of these processes. We're just talking about in a webcast with Vulcan Cyber, because I want to see more of these come into operational security. I want to, as a developer, I fix a bug, I check it in to GitHub, and automatically it closes my Jira ticket for me. Maybe it tests my software, does some regression testing, maybe closes that ticket, but opens up a new one and goes, yeah, you fixed that bug, but you introduced another bug. And that automated unit testing and security testing we've got a lot of great things and a lot of people using those processes and functionality and tools in the development side. I want to see they get to the operational side so I can fix something. That could be a DNS record, that could be a patch, that could be a configuration in something. I want to see that automatically tested. We talked about this in the context of NetSparker, that when it assigns me a ticket that I've got a web application vulnerability, whether I'm a sysadmin or a developer, that it could go either way, I need to update my Apache version or I need to fix my cross-site scripting vulnerability. When I do that, when I update the ticket, NetSparker goes and scans just that one flaw and then gives me an update. I want to see this trickle into operational security as well. The concerning side is now I've got all these fancy tools that is yet more software and applications that I have to secure. Those software and applications need access. They need API keys. They might need certificates. They need all kinds of things. They are also part of my attack surface as well, which is concerning, but greatly beneficial. And we think about the old way we used to do it, email around a spreadsheet. Wow, we're light years ahead of that in so many aspects. So people are emailing spreadsheets around. It's never 100%, right? You do it for one development group or one operational group, but not the other, and you got to play catch up until you can try to cover everyone, right?
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this a little bit on Monday with CyberSync, right? In the GRC space, managing all the risk and compliance.
Right.
Spreadsheets is the way most people still do it.
That's the primary competition. Absolutely. Excel.
Yeah.
Excel's super powerful too, when you think about it.
Well, it's, I mean, that's the no-brainer test for any of these products. Can I do it faster with Excel? If so, why would I pay for your product?
Right. And one issue that I did bring up with Vulcan Cyber in that respect is one of the reasons I don't like email in spreadsheets. While the functionality might be there, the tracking is not there. I want a repeatable process that can be tracked, repeated, and also tracked. So if I fix something, if that fix falls off, I want that to be tracked inside of a software. But you have to work really hard to create software that provides that functionality, not just the tracking, to be able to accomplish all these tasks.
The last one I want to cover just quickly, because I think this is a really interesting announcement, and this is the DigiCert enabling manufacturers to embed certificates on chips prior to manufacturing, which I think is a really interesting approach to think about. How do I protect not only the chips, and we've talked to Eclipse about firmware protection and stuff, right? And we think about the supply chain, and then we take that all the way to this concept of IoT devices and how to secure them. The ability to embed and use certificates in the manufacturing process to get them on these chips, I think creates an opportunity for us to do a better job of securing aspects of the supply chain and aspects of these types of devices going forward.
Agreed. I'm not close enough to the process to know how it would work. However, if it can protect the supply chain so that someone's not building a backdoor that's inside of firmware or directly tied to the hardware or changing out my certificate or something of the like, we can protect that process. As we know, most of the manufacturing is done not in this country. Most of it's done in China. So protecting this process is super important.
Exactly right. So I thought it was an interesting announcement and an interesting approach, is because if it can help us start to protect aspects of the supply chain of our components that are in these devices, that gives us a little bit of a leg up going forward, which I think is an important piece.
Agreed. That will round out the news for this segment. Stay tuned. Martin Crew from Gigamon is coming up next.